Today, I have with me a very special guest, a friend, a senior, and somebody who has built a name for himself in the world of music, Gaurav Dagaonkar.
Thank you so much, Amey. Glad to be here on All About Marketing.
Was music always a part of your life growing up?
Not at all. जैसे कि होता है ऐसे families में, everything is about academics. It was very cliche. Either you become an engineer or a doctor. I actually wanted to become a cricketer. A senior of mine came and gave me 2 albums and he said, "Yes, soon." I think something happened in me. I changed as a human being overnight.
After engineering, you went to do an MBA at IIM Ahmedabad, one of the best in the country.
I had a complete sense of clarity that even if I do an MBA, my end result will only be the music industry. यहाँ जो भी होगा, मेरा plan हिलने नहीं वाला है. So in that sense, you could say Farhan, but मेरे लिए रैंचो भी मैं ही था.
Hello and welcome to the All About Marketing podcast, your go-to destination for all things marketing, advertising, branding, and business. In this series, we meet with interesting personalities and successful entrepreneurs and learn from their journey, insights into the world of marketing, and how they have built their brands and businesses. Today, I have with me a very special guest, a friend, a senior from my management education days, and somebody who has built a name for himself in the world of music and entrepreneurship. Gaurav Dagaonkar needs no introduction. However, I would like to give it a shot. He is a singer, songwriter, composer, music producer, and now a music entrepreneur for the past many years. Hoopr is his latest venture, and we'll get to know about his journey and his entrepreneurial success from the horse's mouth. Welcome, Gaurav. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Amey. Glad to be here on All About Marketing.
Great. It's a pleasure to have you. I have known you since your college days, if I can call it so. And I have known you in your entrepreneurial journey and in your journey as a singer and a songwriter and a music composer. But I want to go a little back in your life and try to understand, try to get an insight into the genesis of this phenomenon called Gaurav.
Of how I became a music guy that you know probably.
So was music always a part of your life growing up?
Not at all. So music actually came into my life during engineering. So I come from a simple, you could say middle class, upper middle class Maharashtrian family here in Mumbai. And जैसे कि होता है ऐसे families में, everything is about academics.
Right.
So it was very cliche. Either you become an engineer or a doctor. वाला angle था.
And you became an engineer.
Yeah. My elder sister is a doctor. I am an engineer. And my father is also an engineer and MBA.
Right.
So while घर में म्यूजिक बजता था, everyone is a fan of films and music, दूर दूर तक हमारा इस फील्ड से कोई लेना देना नहीं था, right? So it was only academics, and in fact in school I actually wanted to become a cricketer.
Oh.
So I think from about 6th standard to 11th मैंने 5 साल बहुत कोचिंग की, क्रिकेट खेला for खार जिम खाना, then प्रबोधन, then even पीजे हिंदू जिम खाना. फिर कहीं ना कहीं 11th में समझ आया कि कितना भी खेल लो, इंडिया तो छोड़ो, मुंबई में भी नहीं होने वाला है. So reality sort of dawned that this is a really challenging space. And from then on I went into academics. Right. But all the way till I would say engineering, there was no music at all in me. In fact, when I meet my school mates now, they were like, if we knew that you could sing and play the guitar and all of that, इतने साल जो हम लोग we used to sort of just sit and hang out, we would have had a lot more musical sessions. So no music at all.
So never a part of annual days or did you learn any instrument back then?
No, I did not. I was not a part of any annual day in terms of music at least. And honestly, I think I also had a bit of performance anxiety as a kid. So भले मैं घर में अपने bedroom में कितने भी गाने गाऊं, the thought was I can't do this in front of anyone else.
Right.
So I don't think I explored anything in school. I didn't perform in front of my school at all. I wouldn't say कि talent नहीं था, शायद था भी, but it never really came out. And school में as such there was no music club. So never really got a chance to explore anything in music back in school.
But what were your musical references like when you were growing up?
For me, the big turning point happened during engineering. So I think after 12th, for me it was like, चलो बहुत पढ़ाई कर ली अभी, 10th 12th, it's all pretty heavy. And I was in Thadumal Shahani Engineering College in Bandra, which has a strong music culture. And these were days when we were buying CDs and exchanging them. And I remember for me the two albums, a senior of mine came and gave me 2 albums and he said, ये सुन. और तभी ना ये सब होता था कि मैं तुझे दे रहा हूँ, सुन के बता क्या लगता है, and all of that. And we used to take it very seriously. So 2 albums he gave me, both were English albums. One was a band called Pearl Jam, album called 10, and the other was Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. And when I heard them उस time पे वो CD Walkman type होता था, I think something happened in me. I changed as a human being overnight. That music, मैंने ऐसा music कभी सुना ही नहीं था life में. And उसके बाद that started a love affair between me and music, rock music for some time. Computers were new, तो मैं घर पे जाके कहीं ना कहीं से print outs निकाल के lyrics पढ़ता था. पूरे दिन मैं सिर्फ English गानों के lyrics निकाल के I used to keep studying them. And in my house I used to keep singing songs continuously, day in and day out. Those were amazing years for me. I think I must have been about 17, 18 years old. And तो एक साइड पे English, एक साइड पे हिंदी. And I'll tell you both English में all these rock bands like Pearl Jam, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, Nirvana, Dire Straits, even some pop like Bryan Adams, Bon Jovi, ये सब सुनता था मैं. And on the other side, Hindi, because my parents love old Bollywood. My father is a massive, die-hard fan of Shankar Jaikishan. He's like an obsessed fan of Shankar Jaikishan. He has all their, album histories and all. तो वो तो था ही सारे आपके राज कपूर के गाने. Then my mom, she's a very unique music listener. So she listens to music with no filter, no attachment. So it is abnormal. Like जब मैं छोटा था तो of course she used to listen to all these old songs, say Madan Mohan हो गए या कल्याण जी, आनंद जी and all. But today also, if you go to my house, she will be listening to whatever is the latest song, singing say Arijit Singh songs, because उनका दिमाग is just absorbing anything without any judgment, जो बहुत rare है by the way. Otherwise you only listen to what you like. But I think somewhere I have taken that from her. So she used to listen to anything and everything. And Madan Mohan ho gaye, Shankar Jaikishan, Ghazle ho gaye. So they used to also
So
be
lots
playing.
of cassettes in the house?
We had a lot of cassettes in the house, from English songs like Boney M, ABBA, to even Kishore Kumar. And then in school and college I used to buy a lot of cassettes too. तो मेरे भी अपने 100, 150, 200 cassettes का हुआ था collection. And during that age which I was mentioning, there were also a lot of bands, if you remember. Indie pop had become big.
Absolutely.
So Lucky Ali, Shan, KK, Euphoria, Strings, all of these folks had also started coming in. So by that time when I was in engineering, where I started thinking that I might love music a little more than what I thought so far, these were sort of my influences. A.R. Rahman, of course. Yeah.
Right. So yours is a story like we had this character Farhan in 3 Idiots, right? who follows his passion. But after engineering, you went to do an MBA.
Yeah.
At IIM Ahmedabad, one of the best in the country. So did you think of getting into the field of music right after engineering? Was there a lingering thought behind there? Or were you just going with what was conventionally expected out of you?
Okay, so एक level पे I wanted to do what was conventionally expected, because there's also this thing कि यार मुझे तो prove करके दिखाना है कि I can slay in engineering also, get into the right MBA college. और वो confidence था कि हो जाएगा. But कहीं ना कहीं ये भी था that so in engineering I fell in love with music. When I wrote my first song, I knew that this is the field I want to be in. And now when I look back at it, I was probably 20 years old at that time, 20, 21 maybe, and I had a complete sense of clarity that even if I do an MBA, my end result will only be the music industry.
Wow.
So even when I came into IIM Ahmedabad, I came with 100% clarity in week 1 कि यहाँ जो भी होगा, मेरा plan हिलने नहीं वाला है. So in that sense, you could say Farhan, but मेरे लिए Rancho भी मैं ही था. So I didn't need any Rancho to tell me this. I knew that if I want to do what I like, then nobody can stop me from doing this.
Right.
So in engineering, I had made up my mind that engineering के बाद मुझे music करना है. But as I said, वो था कि cat people were studying. I was also in that race कि चलो पढ़ाई करते हैं. और बड़ा मज़ा वो इंजीनियरिंग का फाइनल ईयर तो थर्ड ईयर आई रियली remember एक साइड पे I used to study for CAT and then in the evening I was making songs.
Wow.
It was beautiful and CAT clear ho gaya. Then I got into IIM Ahmedabad.
Right.
But as I said, I knew what I was walking into. So my plan didn't change and it hasn't since then. It has remained the same.
Yeah, because I remember when I joined MBA, we used to have this group of people from Mumbai and we used to meet, and I used to look up to Gaurav. He was a cultural secretary, very handsome guy, followed by girls all over.
Some things don't change over time.
And you got into Times Music
Yeah.
as an internship. So what was that experience like? And post MBA, you didn't take up a placement.
Yeah.
And straight away jumped into the field of music. So didn't the fancy salaries, what you could make or what you were missing out on, what your friends were making at that time, how did that play out?
As I said, right in the first week, I was very clear that I want to do music. And you've, been on campus that it is usually a certain flow. It's a lot of hard work that you have to do. And the end result typically is a great job. It could be a banking job, consulting.
1 crore की
and so
salary,
on,
right?
1 crore की salary and so on. But because मेरा काफ़ी clear था कि मुझे music ही करना है, I had a mental battle going on that how do I find my way over here? Because nothing on campus was really helping me as such in becoming a better musician. So in the first year of campus, I formed a band outside in Ahmedabad with some professional musicians in Ahmedabad and we started doing a lot of live shows. मैंने अपने hostel room में भी एक studio बना के रखा था. We're talking about 2004, 2005.
Right.
And early days of Cubase, I had a guitar, I had a sound card and so on. So एक level पे I did not stop my passion of creating music. Then I felt that अगर music industry में जाना है तो I don't know much about this industry. So unless I work with a label, how will I understand कि album कैसे बनाते हैं, कितना पैसा लगता है, इसको distribute कैसे करते हैं? So the only logical step was, let's work in a music label. Now in IIM Ahmedabad, there are no music labels that come on campus to recruit. So I had to proactively then reach out to labels saying that I am a first year student here and I want to work with a label. And luckily for me, Times Music responded immediately and they said that we'd love to have you as an intern. You're selected. Wow. So I opted out of the summer placement internship, summer placements themselves, and I joined Times Music. And it was a lovely period. I spent 2 months there. I was given and which is why even when we, hire interns at Hoopr, we try and do that. The boss who was at that time the CEO of Times Music, Mr. Suresh, he's an IIM Calcutta alum. He told me that you have 8 weeks here. You're going to spend 2 weeks in every department. So first 2 weeks you will spend understanding how an album is made, which is called A&R, working with artists. The next 2 weeks you will understand, you will go to the market and see कि CDs कैसे बेचते हैं. You will go to a Planetime, you will also go to small shops and you will ensure that our CDs are placed correctly. The next 2 weeks you will try and meet brands and try to get brands for some of our artists. They had artists like Bombay Rockers. You remember that Rock the Party?
Right.
Gana tha, Jaggi D. So you will try and get a brand deal. And in the 4th week, you will sit with me and I'll try to explain to you the overall business. I think that was fantastic for me. So I spent about 8 weeks over there and came back knowing 2 things कि album कैसे बनता है और music industry कैसे काम करती है. और दूसरा ये कि मुझे अभी किसी कंपनी में काम नहीं करना है इसके बाद. ये दोनों क्लैरिटी में लेके वापस कैंपस आया था. Because I realized if I want to become an artist, then I can't work in a company. Then I need to get into music really fast. And that internship proved to be really good. And then, of course, I completed my MBA and got into music full time after that.
So you opt out of placements and then you get into forming your own band and touring college fests and creating music. Tell us something about what those initial years were like post your MBA.
I'll do one thing. I'll also cover a small segment before that began, which was, the final part of MBA. So when I was about to complete MBA, I informed my parents that I will not be sitting for placements and I'll be getting into music full time. I thought that they will get really irritated saying ki, ye bahut ho gaya abhi and so on and so forth. On the other hand, they were quite excited as much as I was.
Wow.
That, oh, this is great and go ahead.
Hmm.
I think luckily because we are from Mumbai, जो भी था, it's like चलो बच्चा घर ही आ रहा है इसके बाद, you could have gone somewhere else.
Right.
So I think they were more happy कि okay, follow your dreams, we are with you. But on a serious note, they actually backed me very strongly, and that sort of helped me stand up and create an album. I made a demo and Mr. Narayan Murthy released it on campus. So my mentor on campus, Professor Sunil Handa, he gave me this idea that Mr. Narayan Murthy is coming on campus as our chief guest for convocation. Why don't you write an email to him saying that, sir, I'm getting into music and let's do a press conference where you bless me and, wish me the best. And this is marketing. We are on all about marketing, right? So I told him, sir, he's never going to respond. I'll write a mail, but you think he'll do it? He said, you have nothing to lose. I wrote an email to Mr. Narayan Murthy. He gave me the email address. Within 3 hours, I got a mail saying, this is exciting, let's do it.
Wow.
It was Mr. Narayan Murthy. 3 days from that email, we were having a press conference at IIM Ahmedabad. All the press and, Mr. Murthy is releasing my CD, and I'll try and give you the pic also of that. Right. And I was on all the newspapers the next day from Times of India and so on. Later, that media coverage proved to be very handy when I met labels in Mumbai. Because it showed that, hey, this kid is not just an artist, ye thoda sa marketing oriented, entrepreneurial bhi hai.
Right.
So that happened. And then, of course, I came to Mumbai and struggled a lot. I cut an album. I worked with an artist called Ranjit Barot, who is a very well, established artist. And बहुत धक्के खाए मैंने. I got rejected by Sony Music, by Times Music, which in fact I had interned in. They were like, नहीं यार, ये album और better हो सकता था. And I'm like, ये पहले बोल देते तो I would have, taken up a job. But eventually I got signed to Universal.
Right.
So then coming on to the fact that, this whole journey of doing college shows began. And here a very memorable thing comes to my mind. So, whenever we create anything like an album or a movie, you have to have some hooks in it, some marketing hooks which allow people to remember that, you've done something because you're a new artist. You need people to remember you. I think that was missing on my album. When I was signed to Universal, they kept telling me your album is really good, but can you have one song, Jo, if somebody listens to it for the first time, they remember the song. And I was thinking, what do I do? What could I create? And then I went back to my voice notes. And I found a voice note which I had created in the final week of campus. And usme ek hook tha, I'm really going to miss this place. I'm going to miss my college days. That was a hook. I'm like, yaar, ye bada acha hai, ye bahut, I'm also feeling it, now that, college is over. And then I went back and made a tune and kept it really simple. I'm really gonna miss this place. I'm gonna miss my college days. And I felt, yeah, this could work. Now, I had not recorded this song and I wanted to test it live. जैसे हम लोग करते हैं ना, field testing या proof of concept. So I had got a show in Ahmedabad in a college, HL college. And I remember it was a very cool crowd. And I told the band just, I think 2-3 hours before the show that ये गाना है, मैंने अभी भी लिखा है, let's do this and see. I was really scared. बाकी सारे hit गाने मैं बजा रहा था. This was my own song. And we learnt it, we played it. That song got the biggest pop that night. We had to do it twice. 2 times more people were crying. And I realized I found the title track. Then I went back to Universal. I told them I've made this song. And the whole album got titled College Days. And that's how that journey began.
Right.
Then, of course, College Days, because it was a campus-oriented song, it was pretty cool that they put out CDs. They printed 8,000 CDs. This was 2008. It sold out within a month. And जो Planet M में मैं जा रहा था 2 महीने पहले Times Music के CDs देखने, उसमें मेरा भी album अब था. I had a standee in Planet M. And it was pretty cool. I had long hair at that time. That music video was shot on campus.
Right.
And we did a lot of shows. I would have done about 60-80 shows that year in every IIT. We debuted that song at IIT Bombay. I got an opening slot
at Mood Eye
before Shankar Ehsaan Loy. And we premiered that video for the first time. and people loved it. We performed, and then of course Chaos and IIM Cozy Code and multiple colleges. Those were crazy days. So पैसे नहीं कमाते थे हम लोग. A college used to pay us like 15,000, 20,000. Sometimes I used to only get the sponsor for my show. So I used to tell the college that I am an IIM Ahmedabad grad, so I'll get a IMS or some kind of a sponsor.
Right.
And the college, it's a win-win for everyone. The college didn't have to pay anything. I got paid and my musicians got paid.
Right.
And the coaching class used to get some kind of a visibility because of me. So those were also some marketing gimmicks that we used.
Right.
And those were memorable days. Days of, I would say, fun struggle at that point in time. And that sort of went on till about 2012. And after that, I got into the film and synchronicity side of things.
Right. So tell us something about catching on with these trends, right? One is, of course, the college fest circuit, or how you were able to go back to your memories and create something which was relatable. I mean, that's a term that everybody uses these days, relatable, right? And then, of course, is getting brands on board. But moving from there to mashups or synchronicity, what were the references that you had, or was it an entirely new genre that you were exploring? Tell us something about that journey.
Sure. So I think the first thing you have to understand when you're an artist is jo bhi aap karo, it has to be authentic. Without that, it doesn't go very far. When college days struck a chord with people, it came from my heart. When I sang that song, I missed my college days. I had a great time in college, whether it was engineering, MBA. And for any artist or any creative person, any marketing person who sees this, right? Yes, sure, relatability is important, but it has to come from a space of truth. And after college days, I had started doing movies. So I had got a couple of movies. My first movie was a very small movie, art film with Manoj Bajpayee in it. It was called Lanka. I had started learning Hindustani classical. So I did 2 gaane kiye usme, with one sung by KK, one by Shreya. And बहुत अच्छा था. Then I did one item song in a film called Joker with Akshay Kumar and Sonakshi Sinha. It was sung by Sunidhi Chauhan, called Kafirana. But 1 or 2 years had passed in which I had not sung anything. And right from engineering to MBA, as I told you, I loved English music and also Hindi. So even on campus, if you would remember, I used to sing English songs and Hindi songs. And there was this thing that I want to sing. I don't just want to be a composer. I also want to, sing songs. And I want to sing these songs that I quite love. So synchronicity also came from a space of truth only, where I started doing mashups of songs that I genuinely really liked. And I felt blended together very well. And it also came from a space that, yaar, sirf composer nahi banna hai, gaane bhi gaane hai. So the first mashup I did was in 2012, this song called Tujhe Bhula Diya and Hello by Lionel Richie. And that did extremely well. These were very early days of YouTube. कोई ऐसे mashups वगैरह करता नहीं था. Because I was a music director, I arranged it very beautifully. And it took off and it became very popular on YouTube within a span of, I would say, just 3 to 6 months. And I realized that now music direction, synchronicity and live. So synchronicity was nothing but an expression of my favorite songs, how I can blend them, how I can orchestrate them with my favorite instruments. And if you listen to those mashups, they're all very soulful. They have very interesting ways of blending one song into another and coming back. So that's something I quite enjoy doing, and that's what I did back then.
Right. So when it comes to music direction, right, how did you crack that space? How did you get into films? How did you go about convincing directors or producers that you could produce good music?
Even I don't know how I convinced them, but earlier, before bagging a movie, I thought networking is what helps you.
Now, the reason I ask is because in the film industry, in Bollywood music, you need to stand out either as a singer or a composer, or have or there is families who are very well entrenched. So how do you crack that space? How did you get in?
I had started making a lot of friends after my album. College days was popular back then, and I also usually used to go around with my guitar at parties, and I have a friendly nature that way. So I was making a lot of friends in other circuits too. I've always really enjoyed cinema as a medium. So I was also at that point in time watching a lot of international movies, acclaimed movies, and just thinking about cinema as a medium. Um, but honestly, I also realized, Amey, that the music industry is a professional industry. Cutting your own album is still easy. वो आपके ही गाने हैं. Nobody else has approved them. You have approved them, and so on and so forth. But the film industry is where 40, 80, 100 people are coming together, and it's the best of the best folks that are coming together to make a movie. So I started learning Hindustani classical. I was working a lot on my craft. And in fact, we speak about networking all the time, but an advice I would like to give youngsters is that networking is extremely important, but working on your talent, your craft is, I would say, is one step before networking. Networking हो जाता है life में. At one time you will get to meet whoever you want to. Usually it's not कि यार मैं मिल ही नहीं पाया किसी से. But जब आप किसी से मिलते हो, उस वक्त क्या आपने उसे impress किया? Did you have the talent to back that work? Is what matters at the end of the day.
Right.
And initially when I faced rejection, I realized that I was introduced to these right folks. But they didn't give me work because I was not at that I didn't have that caliber. So 2-3 years I really worked on my craft. I was making songs. घर में अच्छा studio बनाया. I started working with young arrangers, trying to create a sound. And my first break happened in a movie called Will You Marry Me? I had made a song called Sonia. And I met the director at a party and I played that song. And he said that I'm making a movie. And I would love to have this song. So I was very excited. And that song actually later was sung by Rahat Fateh Ali Khan. So that became my first song ever in a Hindi film. By the time I got Joker was directed by Shirish Kundar, who's Farah Khan's husband. And there I got a chance to play at a grand scale. So he told me, look, I'm going to give you every single musician you want. So I got Ustad Tawfiq Qureshi to do the entire rhythm section of that song, like all the live dhols. It was a Marathi, you could say, rhythm that song had, and a lot of Marathi flavor in it. So we got a lot of backing vocals. I had come across a new singer called Adarsh Shinde at that time. I got him to sing that Marathi part. Sunidhi Chauhan came. And working with all of these professionals made me also, much, much better. I remember one, incident. I was to do a song with Sonu Nigam. And he was supposed to come and sing that song, right? And मेरे मतलब पसीने छूट रहे थे that Sonu ji will come and what will he think, इसको कितना म्यूजिक आता है, right? So मैंने हिंदुस्तानी सीखना शुरू किया था एक साल हो गया था. तो मैं उस वक्त हर गाने के ऐसे हिंदुस्तानी में नोटेशंस बना के जाता था. And I remember Sonu ji came and he was sitting there and I had to explain the song to him. And it was a lori, lullaby था वो. So उसमें था ख्वाबों में खोया सारा जहां, खोए दो नैना जाने कहां. ठीक है, तो it had अच्छा था वो, ऐसे थोड़ा सा यमन में रूपक ताल में गाना था वो. ख्वाबों में खोया सारा जहां, खोए दो नैना जाने कहां, ऐसी ट्यून थी. तो हर लाइन के बाद मैं सोनू जी को ऐसे एक्सप्लेन कर रहा था. सा सा ग रे ग सा पमरे ग रे. आफ्टर 2-3 times you're like, हाँ ठीक है, मतलब मैं समझ गया. बट समवेयर ही रियलाइज, अच्छा ठीक है, लड़के को आता है म्यूजिक. And those were fun days. I got to record with Sonu Nigam. I got to record with Sunidhi, Shreya, KK. KK sang many songs for me. 3-4 songs for me. Shan. So ये जो जिन लोगों को मैं कुछ ही साल पहले कॉलेज में सुन रहा था, were all coming to the studio and I was the composer. It's a different high when you get to work with talent like that. And I think one of my most memorable recordings was with Arijit Singh. It was a very small movie again. Life में मुझे थोड़ी छोटी ऐसी फिल्में मिली हैं. मैंने भी ऐसे बहुत फाइट नहीं मारी to get big films. But this song is special for me. Last minute पे I felt that इस फिल्म में ना एक गाना missing, एक गाना होना चाहिए इस फिल्म में. And one lyricist had come home and I told him, दादा I need something very special. ये फिल्म छोटी है, अपने को किक-एस गाना चाहिए इस फिल्म को. एंड ही सेड मैंने ना कल एक शायरी लिखी है, पता नहीं मुझे जाती है कि नहीं. एंड इट वाज मैं ढूंढने को ज़माने में जब वफा निकला, पता चला कि गलत लेके मैं पता निकला. एंड आई एम लाइक यार ये इट्स अमेजिंग. एंड उस वक्त अरिजीत के गाने आए थे, तुम ही हो और कभी जो बादल बरसे. So I convinced the producer that I want Arijit. I will not record it with anybody else. And he agreed to it. And then Arijit came. रात को I remember 12 बजे हमने start किया record करना. 2:30-3 बजे हुआ. And वहीं से studio में से we took the mix and we were traveling across Mumbai. Me and the lyricist. We were like अरे बहुत अच्छा गाना बन गया. If you've heard it, मैं ढूंढने को ज़माने में जब वफा निकला. That song stands. That's
Very
a special
beautiful.
song of mine for me. So those were fun days. All आज मैं Hoopr Songfest करता हूँ. I remember these days very fondly, and working with all of these amazing, incredible artists.
Right. So when you work in the industry, in the creative field, and because you have this, I would say, a very sound balance of the left and the right brain, obviously when you're creating this content and working with a lot of creative people, do you think that having that exposure to the other side, right, where you are also thinking marketing, where you're also thinking branding, business, collaborations, that puts you in a different league, that gives you a kind of advantage with respect to the community that you're working with?
I would say yes and no. I wouldn't say it gives you a huge advantage because sometimes I did feel that coming from an overeducated background also became a bit of a hurdle for me.
Right.
In the film industry, and I'm being as honest, right? You don't come across folks who necessarily care a lot about whether you've done an engineering or MBA, and nobody cares. तो वहाँ पे sometimes going out and shamelessly asking for work, वो initially मुझसे नहीं हुआ. जो आज as an entrepreneur मैं कर रहा हूँ, मैंने भी कुछ lessons learn किए हैं कि यार, for example, this song मैं ढूंढने को ज़माने में, post that I should have really aggressively gone. It was a movie I did with T-Series. So I should have gone aggressively and bagged more work. But I didn't. I felt कि अगर मैं इतना अच्छा गाना बना रहा हूँ या अच्छे गाने बना रहा हूँ, why don't producers come and meet me or call me? And that didn't happen. So I have made that blunder. But even in fact, I feel that these days a lot of artists you'll see choose very catchy names for themselves, whether it is a name like Badshah or a King or something like that. And I feel that these are small marketing things that I could have done. And we learn from all of these things, right? So today when I have a Songfest or a Hoopr, these names are catchy. And so it's not that just coming from an MBA institute or a top tier institute has given me like crazy amounts of wisdom and I've done everything correctly. But yes, having a bit of a structure, an understanding of the process and being able to figure out what kind of will work for you as a positioning, I have followed. Like I realized I could sing, so Synchronicity, I had branded it such that these are very classy songs which are created as mashups. And I knew the audience, that it's going to be very, very, high net worth people who like songs like these. Blending, say, a Mark Anthony song with a Mohit Chauhan song, etc. And for many years, I would have done shows all across the world with Synchronicity for this kind of an audience. Corporates ho gaye, HNIs ho gaye. So that sort of worked really well for me. And I would say a lot of the marketing dimag ab maine lagaya hai with Hoopr and Songfest. But strangely, when I was an artist, it sounds weird, but I was actually quite a hardcore an artist at that time. And I would say that I have, in all being candid, I would have made a lot of blunders that I probably have learned from.
Right. So yeah, I think you learn a lot from people who don't have that kind of formal education but learn through experience, and sometimes that works very well. Like you give names like Badshah or King, and I'm sure a lot others in the music industry also understand branding very well because they have spent that much time doing it.
Yeah, I mean, look at Diljit. He is a very good, great artist, but brand bhi itna acha karta hai apne aap ko. He's played on that Indian card that he needs to. I feel even Arijit, although he doesn't do flamboyant things, I think he's realized that being that is exactly being more of a purist is working for him as a brand.
Right.
So everyone here who's successful sort of understands कि इनका क्या brand persona है, and they stick to that thing. So you will find सर आग लगाएगा ये गाना, आग लगा देंगे वाले people भी मिलेंगे आपको, and some guys who know that exactly my talent will speak. Say A.R. Rahman would never do something like that. So here people do understand, even if they may not be coming from an MBA background. Trust me, those who are successful, they have a good understanding of what is working and sticking to their persona.
And while this journey happened, how did the environment around you change, right? On one hand, you would have had your batchmates who were doing completely different things, whether it was from engineering or management, and then you have developed a cohort of people in the music industry.
Right.
What kind of similarities, differences did you find in these two spaces? Were people that you grew up with able to understand the space that you were in at that time or you are in today?
I found no similarities, only differences. Because once you get into music, you become a part of a very different circle.
Right.
This circle of people only talks about art, creativity, and cinema, and they live in a cocoon. And maybe usi mein tha. And I quite enjoyed, that space too, because my wife is a singer, both of us are artists, so there's a huge discussion about art and music all day. And I could relate less and less to my batchmates. Having said that, at a personal level, Amey, I've not changed at all since campus. So I still maintain contact with all of my batchmates and folks. We used to hang out, meet, jam over music. In fact, I might have the most interesting stories to share.
Right.
So usually I was a storyteller, and it was always fun. Yeah. But the only connect I would have with the corporate space is while doing jingles and ads, that I used to interact with a lot of brands. Because I have been a student of management, I understand branding and positioning, so I was able to crack a lot of those quite nicely. But otherwise, for 10 years before I started this entire journey of Songfest and Hoopr, trust me if I tell you, I was only an artist. मैं लेट सोता था, लेट उठता था, अपने हिसाब से काम करता था. I used to practice my instrument, make songs. And it was, many people used to approach me from IIM saying, join us as a co-founder, this is a media tech venture. And I used to say, bhai, I don't understand what you're talking about. So for 10 years, literally, I did nothing but make music, do shows, record, and live that artist's life. And it is a very different space. Today, I think, because I run a music business and I work with artists day in and day out, I can understand every, मतलब कतरा जानता हूँ मैं एक आर्टिस्ट का कि इसके दिमाग में क्या चल रहा है, ये कहाँ से पैसे कमा रहा है, नहीं कमा रहा है, इसके दिमाग में क्या इनसिक्योरिटीज हैं. And I think living that life for 10 years has given me a lot of that's probably the reason why Hoopr and Songfest have done well, is because I think they come from a space of solid fundamentals.
Right. So you made these gradual pivots, right, while being in the industry, and then finally culminating into musical entrepreneurship, if I can call that, personified by Songfest and Hoopr. So where did that idea come in to your mind, and how did you go about then creating a business around this whole thing?
I was fascinated by the music business since I interned at Times Music. I was only clear at that time that I need to be an artist now. But I loved everything about making albums, records, publishing, owning music rights. I found it fascinating. I think somewhere in the year 2015, 16 or 16, 17, I had begun to, start getting a little bored of just doing synchronicity and these music pieces, and mere andar there was this latent thought that can I create something even bigger now than this, can I create something beyond myself, and something that is an industry level, you want to give back to the community. I was also meeting, because of my shows, a lot of entrepreneurs, HNIs, जिनके लिए मैं shows करता था, big businessmen, and I had started getting inspired. I saw a common thread, Amey, that most successful businessmen, they do something in an area which they are passionate about. And when you're passionate about something, then nothing feels like work. You are just so engrossed in making the world a better place with your ideas and with what you can create. And I think somewhere around 2017-18, I felt that I'm ready to do this. So consciously, I did my last film in 2017, which was Babu Moshai Bandukbaz with Nawazuddin. And after that, I sat down with my wife and I told her that, you know what, now I want to explore business. So ho sakta hai for a year, I may not want to do a lot of gigs and so on. And there was also a very interesting thing that happened. I was meeting my batchmates and मेरे घर पे एक party था, एक दो दोस्त आए थे, and one of them, you know, I was known as doggy on campus. So one of them just casually said that, "Arey, doggy has never worked in a company. It'll be interesting to see ki whether he'll be able to run a company or not."
Right.
And तभी हंसा मैं, you know, but it stayed in my mind कि यार इसने सही बोला. I've never worked in any place, so ये तो बड़ा, I've not thought about it that much.
Right.
And a lot of these things inspired me कि नहीं यार अब तो और साला successful बना के दिखाना है इस, you know, इस company को. And that is how the idea of Songfest and Hoopr were born. I was never ever competing with anyone else. I have been like that since the age of probably 10 or 11, that I only compete with myself. In school ना मैंने किसी और के कभी marks देखे कि इसके ज़्यादा हैं कम है, मैं बस अपना performance अपने ही level पे gauge करता हूँ. And it might sound like I'm sounding very, you know, कि बहुत clarity है, but genuinely ऐसा ही है. Whether it was 10th, 12th, CAT, I have never competed with anybody. When I decided to get into music, I knew that this road will have its own hardships and lessons, but ये तो मेरा choice है. So seeing, you know, somebody else do well, etc., never impacted me. In fact, these are my batchmates, so I always felt very happy and proud कि यार these are my brothers and sisters, you know, who are doing, okay, not all sisters, but you know, everyone is doing so well. And that also inspired me in a way. And I think somewhere I also was realizing that my journey is inspiring them. I've never competed in that sense, and I think that has helped me. Even now when I'm running a company, there is no craziness कि यार किसी और D2C में इतना पैसा raise होता है या किसी और का, you know, journey ऐसा होता है. This is our domain, music and music licensing. How can we build the best company here? I work on those principles only, and I don't change those principles.
Right. So on music licensing, how is that space like? How does it work? If you can just give an explanation to a layman. And where does Hoopr fit into the whole music licensing space?
Music licensing का simple meaning ये है that when you are using a piece of music, okay, it could be you dancing at a party or playing music at your own wedding, or you're creating a video which you want to put up on television or your own Instagram handle. And I'm talking about a brand or any kind of commercial usage. You require a license to use that music.
Right.
Why? Because it is somebody else's intellectual property that you are using and playing. And in India, this concept is very weak. People don't understand. They think music हवा है कि, you know, ऐसी बह रही है, मैंने बस अपने शादी में बजा लिया, इसमें पैसे क्या देने हैं. But that music is created by some company or an individual for whom that is their business, and you are playing it to enhance the quality of your event or your ad or whatever it is that you're creating. Just like, let's say, in an event, you're paying for the decor or that gulab jamun, right? So that the event becomes better. Yeah. You're playing hit songs or songs to make the quality better. So you should take a license. At a fundamental level, licensing is nothing but obtaining a permission to use that music in exchange of a payment.
Right.
And this concept in India is a little not well known, but in the West it's quite prevalent, right? So we are one of the first companies that is into this business of music licensing. We've built a platform called Hoopr. And on Hoopr, you will see thousands of songs, background scores, sound effects that are all cleared to be used in advertising, in reels by brands. Today, even on YouTube, when a content creator makes a cooking video or a travel video, दोस्तों आज मैं आपको उदयपुर ले जा रहा हूँ. If they want to monetize it, all the music needs to be cleared. Otherwise, they get a copyright claim or a takedown and so on. Even all your television shows, you see an Indian Idol or a Saregama, they use a lot of this background music, which is all copyright safe.
Right.
We noticed a gap that in India, there is no company providing Indian copyright safe music, and all the Indian companies are using American, European platforms. So music licensing is now becoming more and more important as brands are creating branded content. influencer marketing is becoming bigger and bigger. Today, India has almost 100 million creators, and you must have read about, today even blue collared folks creating content. We had a very interesting story. There was Anand Mahindra ji had shared this story of a truck driver, Rajesh Ravani, and how he has bought a house now making content. तो मैंने अपने टीम को तुरंत फ़ोन किया कि यार लेट्स कॉन्टैक्ट राजेश एंड गिव हिम अ फ्री सब्सक्रिप्शन. पता चला कि 1 साल से ऑलरेडी ही इज़ बिन यूजिंग हुपर एज अ सब्सक्राइब्ड person, right? So that is the level of now content creation happening in India. People are taking music very seriously. Brands, of course, even broadcasters today, we have a ZTV, Pocket FM, Sony Live that use Hooper. And I think the vision with which we began 2 years ago, we've already seen that happening. Today, more than 300,000 creators are on Hooper. Close to 125 enterprise brand subscribers are there. But we are still very much in the initial phases of convincing people. When I meet brands and tell them, you've used this music in your reel, have you got a license? Then they either show that, they don't know, or they pretend ki, I didn't know, yaar, iska license tha, acha, pata nahi. So we still have to overcome a lot of, I would say, educational barriers, which you have to inform and educate people that this is what it is. And I think we are doing that slowly and steadily as Hooper.
And with the advent of digital and AI, how is this landscape shaping up?
Digital, of course, has made this entire bit of music licensing important, because I remember till about 5 or 6 years ago, or even maybe even 2-3 years ago, you could get away by using a piece of music and nobody was getting a claim or a strike. But now, increasingly with DRM, you're able to track every single usage of music on social media, right? So that has really helped us, and we are also taking a lot of advantage of these tools to try and track our music by making it a part of different CMSs and so on. And AI, I would say, is the next level of changing the game. I think all of us today are using AI or are trying to adopt AI in some way or the other. And the creative field is one that will be really disrupted by it. I think whether it is creating videos, I'm sure, you creating videos for different brands would be seeing that AI could, fasten the process of making videos. We're using it even for storyboarding, even in music. At one level, generating music automatically, or at the other level, making smart and fast recommendations. So Hooper is right now in that space where we're making real optimizations on how to recommend the right video for the right audio for a certain video, and how to quicken the time that the person takes to find the right track, and eventually probably getting to a point where you can also generate tracks, but in an ethical manner, not training it on data which tomorrow could land you or the user in a bit of a gray area. But right now, I would say that at least in terms of recommendations, optimizing their process and finding the right track, AI is playing a big role in that.
Next is a rapid fire segment. I ask you 10 questions and they need to be quick and fast. The first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Bollywood or indie music?
I've done more of Bollywood, so Bollywood. I'm a storyteller, and I love being a part of a cinema canvas, so Bollywood.
Great. Favorite musical instrument?
For me, it's my vocal. Apart from that, I play the guitar and the piano, but for me, the voice.
Voice. Studio recordings or live music, live shows?
Studio recordings. Live, as I said, I still get a little anxious before going live. In a studio, it feels like you're creating something that could stand the test of time. So I feel very excited when I'm in a studio with singers and lyricists. Aisa feeling aata that what you could create could impact millions of people for years to come. Right. Studio.
Dream artist that you've collaborated with? You worked with so far.
I mean, I've worked with pretty much all my favorite artists. I would say Arijit would stand out, because I think he's a singer who can do anything with his voice. And I love his vocal. He's, according to me, the benchmark today of what singing should be. So, Arijit.
Any artist that you would love to collaborate with? International?
I like Sid Sriram. I would like to collaborate with him in India. I love his voice. I would also like to collaborate with Jonita on a song. She's been a friend, but never really got a chance to work together. International, I would like to work with some K-pop acts. I've been looking at K-pop from Hooper's perspective and been following all of these bands like BTS or even Rose. So maybe any K-pop artist in the near future.
Singing or songwriting?
Songwriting.
Most played songs on your playlist right now?
Right now, the most played songs on my Spotify are songs that my daughter chooses to play. So right now, you will find all sorts of fun pop songs. Bruno Mars, the APT song is right, on the most played. But at a personal level, these days I am rediscovering Pink Floyd. So I'm listening to Pink Floyd again.
Okay. Are you a morning person or night owl?
I'm a morning guy now. Wake up pretty early, and but I am sadly in that 70 or 90 hour bracket that you're talking about. Not for others, but I've realized that I am in that bracket and consciously trying to make time now for myself and my family. But morning guy.
Great. One word to describe your journey?
Adventurous.
Okay. If you have to choose between passion as a music composer or discipline as an entrepreneur?
Now discipline. I'm in that stage where I'm building something way beyond myself. So as an entrepreneur, there are too many different things you're looking at. So now discipline matters a lot more. But till I was just an artist, I would say passion. Every now and then when I make songs, I try and put on the passion hat too. And but discipline ultimately beats anything else. I've realized that. It is your focus, your attitude and discipline that will take you there to the finish line.
Right. Last one. Anything which has inspired you, a book or a person?
Many of them, actually. I read a lot. I love to read. And earlier it was artist biographies. And now, usually these days, it's management books. I remember once on a flight, this was 2017, I was in Thailand, I had done a show. Just before the flight, I wanted some book to read. And I couldn't find any biography, any music biography. So I picked up this book called The Upstarts. And I just took it and said, chalo, jo bhi hai, I'm reading this in the flight. And it was a story of how Airbnb and Uber were created. And I kid you not, on the last page, aaj bhi us pe, maine pura Hoopr or Songfest ka plan banaya tha. If I were to build a company, cut, 3-4 page I wrote it. And I've kept that book. It's still, it has that plan. Wow. So books influence me, and I'm this guy who, even if I read 2-3 pages and if I can implement something, I'll do that. There was an interesting book in terms of music. There's a book called The Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. And I've created my own quadrant for artists, where sometimes in some talks that I give, I speak about how an artist should try and have 4 quadrants of income. So one is trying to have a business. It need not be as complicated a business as Hoopr, but you can even have a studio, like a few studios where even if you are not in that office or that business, it's making money for you, right? So that is one. The second is keeping a fixed income, like a salary coming in. Like today, a lot of artists that work with Hoopr have a fixed income, and they've all written to me or met me saying that, yeah, because of this fixed income, I could plan so many things. As artists, otherwise you're only living check to check from one, gig to another. The third is your self-employed part, where you're doing a show or you're doing a production for somebody. And the fourth is the most important one, which is passive income. Of course, these could be from your investments, but in our case, it should be from royalties. Where you create music when you're young, you create a lot of music, and that's making money for you, for years to come after that, which is what, the business that Hoopr is in now. So that cash flow quadrant influenced my thinking like that. I have implemented it in my own life, where I do shows, business, royalties and passive income, and also salaried. But I encourage a lot of artists to do that. So books have influenced me from time to time. And I'm a huge reader. In fact, अब मैंने एक अजीब चीज़ चालू की है. मैंने ऑफिस में एक लाइब्रेरी बनाई है, and there's a compulsory book that everyone has to read, and they have to then do a presentation a month later. Wow. But I'm already seeing that with that, a lot of people have unlocked a new way of thinking. So yeah.
Great. Super. And now coming to the concluding part, where I want to know what are the new things that you're doing. I understand that you're coming back into music direction. Could you give us a glimpse into how did that happen?
So for the last couple of years, I've been doing mostly business, right? And have not had a lot of chance to make music or perform. But now that the business has grown, there are more people, leaders और आ गए हैं. So थोड़ा सा time मिलता है to be able to think on these lines. And sometimes God has some interesting plans for you, right? So just a couple of months ago, 3 months ago, a friend of mine called me saying that I have joined Manish Malhotra's production house, Stage 5. And हम एक फिल्म बना रहे हैं तो with Geo Studios. And इसमें एक theme song missing है. So would you like to take a shot at it? And as it happened, that song landed in my lap, and I did a song called Sali Mohabbat, which has now become the title track of the film.
Wow.
And it's directed by Tiska Chopra, Radhika Apte, Anurag Kashyap, and all these folks. So I've just done a film as a music director, which is Sali Mohabbat. And I also just performed in Delhi for a nice event. So again, I was having butterflies in my tummy before the event, but the show went really, really well. So I've now realized that, okay, I can still perform really well and I can make songs which are working fine. So I've decided that I'm going to carve out at least 20% of my time to making music and performing. I'll also be releasing some songs in Sri Lanka. I have a good audience in Sri Lanka, strangely, which, is a very different audience altogether. But this year I've resolved that at least 2 or 3 songs I want to put out in that language. And also resolved, Amey, to give more time to my family. Because last couple of years I've been so caught up that, I've not been able to spend a lot of time. But spending time with my daughter gives me a lot of happiness. I've just become a pet parent also, so we've got a dog. So the idea is that how do I spend more time on Saturdays and Sundays? So we've started this new routine. If anyone else is a founder, these are small things. So we've started this thing called SMR, which is like a Saturday or Sunday morning routine, where we choose any restaurant in Mumbai and we go there in the morning and have food. And we've been doing that for the last, I would say, 2 to 3 months, and it's extremely amazing. After a week of hard work, I look forward to an SMR, and sometimes we invite other people to join in.
Right.
Sometimes my parents join us, sometimes some friends join us. So things like these are nowadays what I am quite enjoying adding to my routine of work.
But you also mentioned that you are slowly trying to get rid of the 70-90 hour work week onto a more balanced approach.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a great thing that you're doing. So you just mentioned that you're crazily into the 70-90 hour work weeks, and now you're trying to strike a balance. So does it come easy, or is it because you have now matured as an entrepreneur? Has it taken you a couple of years to now get into that
I wouldn't
space?
say that I've matured as an entrepreneur. I've just learned a lot more than what where I was 2 years ago. And it's like the, horizon. The more you go towards it, the more you realize that it's further away, right? And as your company grows, as your team grows, you realize that you have mastered, or you've rather not mastered, you've become better at certain problems that were tough when you began. Now they have become, very basic. And now there are bigger things that you have to study, learn, and so on, right? And it's this self-actualization that keeps you going and thinking, right? I don't think... I was at IIM Ahmedabad recently for an accelerator where this topic was discussed, and I don't think any entrepreneur becomes an entrepreneur because किसी और ने उसको बोला है ये, do this. It's your own choice. It's your own journey, right? And you want to become better at it. You're passionate about your business. You're responsible for your team. You want your business to succeed because you also want the market to become better. These are things that keep me very excited. So it is my nature that just immediately upon waking up, I start thinking about the business. And till I sleep, I'm only thinking about the business. If you are a businessman or an entrepreneur who's in that space, I think most of us are, that's all you're thinking of all the time. But you have to tell yourself that life is not just about business. Life में बहुत सारी और चीजें हैं. Are you neglecting that? It could be your own health, physical, mental. It could be the time spent with your parents or your family, and on your own passion areas too. Because, as time goes by, you're not going to get any younger.
Right.
So I feel that there is an important requirement to now balance this out. And even in our office, when I see youngsters wanting that balance, I don't stop them from having a balance.
Right.
Much rather, come to Monday with a nice fresh mind rather than being burnt out. And I've seen that, and we've glorified this, even from our MBA days, that how many hours can you put in? 16 hours a day, 18 hours a day. But उसका ना life कहीं ना कहीं compensation मारता है आपको. You might put 16, 18 hours a day for multiple days or months or whatever it is, but something resets everything, and then it just makes you feel that usse acha had I balanced it, it would have been a lot more fun. And it also teaches you to look outside your business. So now I have become a proponent of this, that, you know, consciously, how do we take out pockets? I forget it sometimes being a businessman, you know, you are, but you have to remind yourself consciously that there's more to life than just the business. It's a much healthier way of looking at things.
Right. Lastly, beyond business and beyond music, what passions do you have? What are the things that interest you, get you excited? Any new technology? Any new ideas that come to your mind?
That way I'm a fairly simple guy. I have 3-4 passion areas only. बहुत ज़्यादा, you know, sometimes too much choice makes you do nothing. So my life revolves around music, business, my family, and most of my thoughts also revolve around this area. So I'm very excited to learn about other businesses and, you know, other technologies. I keep reading because as I said, I love to read. And it fascinates me, and I take ideas to implement in my business. But even just in music, honestly, there is so much that needs to be done. Artists need to be made more aware. I want to create a whole revenue vertical for artists, you know, going forward. So it's time consuming in that sense. I love movies. I keep watching movies, and maybe one day I might even produce a film. I've produced a lot of music videos, so I love the craft of filmmaking. But who knows, someday, you know, as a passion. My wife is a chef, so we often discuss that one day we could open a restaurant. She'll run it, of course. I will not. And I think she will also not want to work with me. But, you know, so we've been looking at, okay, if we open a restaurant, what could that be? So these are areas that I sort of love, and sometimes travel too. I find a lot of comfort traveling and, you know, getting memories.
Great. Amazing, Gaurav. Thank you so much for being a part of this episode. I think it was a fabulous ride that you took us through. Thank you for sharing your story the way only you could narrate it. I think you're a great storyteller. That way, I've always believed that. And taking us through the struggles, the highs and the lows, and your vision for what you want to do in your way, change the field that you are in, the field of music licensing, and your creative journey. I think it would inspire a lot of people watching this episode. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
My pleasure, Amey. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I think you're doing a fantastic job with All About Marketing, this podcast, where you're calling folks to share their experiences and stories. And I hope in some way, if I have inspired the viewer, I think our purpose is done. So thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you. Thank you. And please do watch this episode and others of the All About Marketing podcast. This is a place where you get insights on the latest things in marketing and advertising, and great stories and great storytellers that you hear these from. Thank you.